All right, welcome to a new episode. The Gorilla Zodiacs episode. And we don't want to forget about the memory portion, stack memory in air form. You're going to be as a child, and you're going to hold your breath. And when you hold your breath, you're going to stack memory, in which we're going to rely and resort back to that exact same memory, but you're going to have static bombs all around you, that staticky feeling. And you're going to take one of those laser electrons, only one of them, and we're going to be reproducing organs, and we're going to be getting our skinnies out of there on this round coming up. All right, and we're going to go over, welcome to the next podcast. We're going to go over zodiacs, zodiac signs, happy versus frowning, small symbols that you'll be looking for in a parasitical arena and world, and what they would be looking for at bone diminishment. That is to say that bone's going to see through and produce flesh when you're injured. Zodiacs, happy versus frowning, zodiac signs are the difference between what is an electrical volt. Things to look for in a parasitical world have advanced past that and have gone to the elder stages of trying to live a long time. So therefore, zodiacs, in a sense, are like a smile and a frown once you're acquainted with that idea. And we're going to go now to a special podcast, the elders of the Bible. And the elders of the Bible seem to bless two genealogies away. And so therefore Joseph, Isaac, Abraham, Noah may have all blessed their grandkids. And we're going to consider the idea that if one is debating about today's current philosophy of living a long time, one would understand the Bible concepts first. And that zodiacs are like a smile versus a frown. Zodiacs in this sense would go one generation, two generations up, and would collaborate with what are brand new concepts of growth. So therefore, instead of doing one generation away, they would do two generations away and would gain the likeness of what is a zodiac sign, in resemblance to a smile versus a frown, which is an inward part attacked by parasitical host agents, birds, crickets, people, Daniel chapter 9. So on the wing of an abomination, one other vehicle is there, would show the zodiac concept, what is a parasitical alignment, parasites described as either hosts or that which is within your own genealogy as a belief system for a duration of time, and align those together. And so zodiacs are going to resemble a host of activity. Therefore, elders, at this point in the Bible studies that we have, the nappy elder, sevens rise up in the Bible, and sevens show the indication of happiness. That I think it is during the day that you can be like the day in the New Testament, which I think is either peaceful or happy, but I can't tell right now. And so we have these elements. Of course, a smile indicator for a future podcast would show that when an assailant failed, not only did they fail once, but they failed twice, and would be there as a Caleb means fat, aerobics, working out with biblical tones, and would be in your fat by tomorrow, a smile versus a frown, which, when naively and nonchalantly going about, seem to be perfect for assailants on the outside that you don't realize at the time frame how many assailants are coming at you. And so it seems like the inward parts have a smile versus frown. So we don't want to forget that. We don't want to forget the Elder podcast and Japhet the Elder and all the elder portions of learning and how to equate all those accurately within a 2-generational time frame. All right, until next time. Over and out. All right, on to the next session. One electron volt out of an array of static electrons, just one out of those, should debunk our historical Miriams and should attempt to live a long time, as in seen in previous societies. Described by a first-generation mixed American, we shall go over the notes now. First, air memory, gas, and electric. Air memory can be related to the stages of Egypt, as in wrapping the mummies up in air-related memory growth. Memory is growing. The tree of knowledge of good and evil may as well be the tree of memory of good and evil, in which two things couldn't touch, old and new garments, and good and evil while growing. In a sense, Neo from the Matrix jumps in these people's soul and they explode. We think it's because memory is growing and you can't touch two things. Meaning, if they're doing evil, you did a good deed by them and started to grow with them. They could not grow at the same time, which leads to the tree of knowledge of good and evil, or the tree of memory of good and evil. The way we discovered air memory recently was when the body became bloated, you were filled with air. And so in acquaintance, your air memory were one, getting to the static bombs in the one electron from an entire array of static, and how that cures the organ. First, we're going to say that locks, bolts, and seals in the Bible should be acquainted as over 1,027 locks, bolts, and seals, and which, if you relock and rebolt, suspectfully what the Bible is doing for us is sending us a signal that wants all the locks, bolts, and seals to be in their original form, which may live a long time. Every time you lock or relock a lock, bolt, and seal, you are going to have organs remade immediately and feel electric. This is how we got to the electrons. Besides the older ways of gas, electric, air memory, we did have those intact. But if you break a lock, bolt, and seal, you would do the exact same thing. You would regrow organs, tissue, and have electric. The fact that electrons follow the inward eyes, we're going to go over the inward parts and the inward eyes while growing. As one had competition when they were younger, their competition as they were younger was to be what we assume we have been seeing in junior high school and elementary school. They're just a little bit older while being in elementary school. As a matter of fact, my grandfather was in high school when he looked elementary school age, and he grew 11 inches in one semester and became the youngest dean in the history of our college where we were from. So he was a young, older guy, and oddly enough, the majority of the people in his time frame looked like they were at least 50 years old as seniors in high school. We're going to be going over a few notes that we think people have been targeted for to see if they know or don't know. We're going to go through Isaiah 6, 7, and 8 to ask your neighbor and rob everything. Electric volts and one electron from an array of static would clear out the organs to the eyes and to the grippers. So as you were young, you had competition amongst your own people, your own peer group, and your competition was to live a long time or to be as young looking as possible. But as a youngster from elementary school, you therefore had 2 or more people around you, and your surrounding area was a supportive area. Noteworthy to the parasites like birds and crickets, that the surrounding area becomes consumed by parasitical elements, which we think produces eyes, and those eyes are going to be an engine. Meaning, as soon as your surrounding area had good competition or were in stand together, that kind of accumulation would produce eyes, which is an engine. We suspect that the volts and the 1 volt out of a static bomb would follow eyes is somewhat like those eyes, and we're going to make a special note to inward growth agents that act like eyes. Okay, and different forms of eyes. One layer of tissue would be like as if your baby stuff is coming out all the time, you just don't want to overlap. Another layer would represent the functions, potentially organs, which we'll be getting into grippers. And the next layer would represent something like eyes, but it would represent eyes in a different way. So we're just going to try and label all the eyes that we have. One, for instance, that if two sides of your hemispherical body or the eyes on hemispherical portions were in layer 1, layer 2, and then skipping past those layers, getting to the eyes would still grip and animate that portion of the body. Electrons which follow eyes are going to follow the grippers, which the grippers are that which follow almost anything and divide into many subdivisions of gripping ornaments. For those, we're going to recognize that the organs are simply overlapped, that the overlapping of organs are what these are, and you're going to define what's going on, called definitive parable or parallel, and you're going to find that I am indeed organs overlapping, and you're going to go to one extremity of layer outside of when you recognize your organs overlap, and you're going to look for simple grippers, that which grips. Once you get used to those grippers following the trail that they're on, you are very close to the one electron following eyes. That's out of a staticky bomb, one electron following eyes and fulfilling the entire organization. Okay, and we want to also note while we're there at what is good and bad cancer and fitting in almost every idea we're going through in society. A good cancer will still grow and a bad cancer will still grow. We think the parasitical world is aligned to two different airwaves of air memory growth, or a very good baby growth, then supported by one more air memory growth, showing two growths would be as a good cancer. That which is lingering on one idea, meaning it's putting pressure on one idea, socially is looking for the engagement of two or more growth types, which we found you can't touch two things while growing. This one equating to what is called a galaxy. Galaxies are very important in a sense that if you're familiar with Men in Black, Will Smith, they found something called a galaxy. In the Arabic world, you would wonder about inward parts which have animation versus non-animated, in which one of the gesturing, definitive, or communicating part could be close to what is a galaxy. Galaxies we found in all people, and we found it around the time of two or more growths simultaneously, which should produce a good cancer. You should be very okay and very aware that cancers are hard to produce, and it's actually hard to get ill using an original model which claims that the body just simply bounces back having a smile versus a frown only, that you really want to smile in there versus a frown, which parasitical portions try to give you a frown, which diminishes bone marrow. Bone marrow is going to warp zero or produce flesh when you're injured. Plus, not touching two or more things, good and evil or old and new, while growing. Neo jumps in their soul. For the bone marrow contestant who has just failed or diminished their bone marrow or has brought awareness into their failure, would diminish that bone marrow, and they wouldn't be able to grow while being attached to something that's almost see-through and then digest through the entire spectrum of the body. It also gets rid of authoritative ideas given in the Bible. They'll have great authority, and you have to get used to these people failing, and then you want to add one more failure in there. Their friends failed and passing to the next vehicle. Make sure you eat food, have your own memory, because you'll be able to relate to your last memory on time. And they've gone as far as using the word of Christ in a very deep heated red zone, which people have been noted to fall out. Parasites like dogs, birds, and now crickets have been added to our list of parasitical aware elements that other people are aware of. So they failed not once but twice. What that's going to do is leave a smile in there. It's going to gel in there, that smile, so that on a nonchalant day, you will actually have a smile in your deep-seated portions. Parasitical world plus Neo from the Matrix. But a galaxy is like one of the functioning portions of the body brain, as if we had small ornaments which are related to galactic thinking. You also want to make sure you understand learning, the endeavors of learning from a very small nonuclear cell type all the way to the idea of your very small renewed stuff, as in looking for things like sleep, galaxies. Moses brought forth sleep. Okay, and so we're going to go back to the electrons. So you have a static bomb. One electron should follow in accordance grippers, eyes, different sets of eyes. Getting into the brain, we went through galaxies and different things to look for at animation. Levels number 1 and 2. Meriams, usually you can't fit more than two things in due to the mathematics of Meriam. 250s will produce a tristate. Polymeroc, Earth separates the fire from the water. Morocco and Polynesia. The last 50s could not reproduce what the first 250s produced and vice versa, showing a 2-3 balance of a squeezy spore. Mathematics like that, layers by layers, deviating from one layer to go to the next layer. You're ready for gestures. and what would seem the interpretation over time of inward eyes. Gestures are very important. Low body demeanor. One who has not stretched out or overlapped while growing or stretched while growing simply decompresses or compresses more and still looks for the growth types. Definitive, articulating the growth type that you're in. Very important. I am as a baby right now. I am lesser than the stretched out portions. I should look for immediate neighboring pairing parts. They should ornament and branch out as what it is signified for, but a small gesture will find a static bomb in one electron from that static bomb as being zipped over to the other side. So now you can zip that one electron out of a static bomb over to the other side by simply not paying attention but gesturing, looking for the eyes and looking for that one electron out of a static bomb. We're going to look over to our neighbor and we're going to ask our neighbor and we're going to rob our neighbor as is depicted on Isaiah 6, 7, and 8. Rob everything. Okay, and that's going to be the debunking shell of Quasi-Mary. Next, the life-living long time cells are coming up in the next podcast. Simple experiments like stubbing one's toe, finding the electron volt, finding the nerve carrier going into the body. Most things in the body are locks, volts, and seals. Switching the locks, volts, and seals to your newer self and watching the nerve only span from your newer self. Things like that coming up. And don't forget, with the multitude of locks, volts, and seals in the Bible, they most likely will all correspond. Our favorite one, baby angels. If you start off at a baby angel and you go to a place which isn't breathing, most likely that area of a volt, lock, and seal will correspond with your new volt, lock, and seal, because all volt, locks, and seals should correspond to the rebuilding of the body. The way the Bible claims that we went into a woe, we dug a trench for ourselves, and we broke that volt, lock, and seal. Our organs came out immediately, and electrons came out immediately. Have a nonchalant idea, and 1 volt from that staticky bomb, 1 electron ray, will go over to where you are posturing yourself. Until next time, over and out. Rob your neighbors. Till next time.